tengo la suerte de poder estar hoy y presentaros un ponente de excepción. Es el señor Sir Ronald Cohen, para los que no le conozcáis, que seréis muy pocos. Es el padre de la inversión de impacto, es aquel que fundó entidades tan innovadoras como Bridges Ventures o Big Society Capital o Social Finance. Pero no quiero yo quitarle ni un solo minuto a todo lo que nos va a contar hoy y por tanto paso directamente al inglés y a presentarle. Thank you, Anna, for being our champion today, driving impact at the heart of Cantabria. I am thrilled to honor Sir Ronald Cohen, who is the chair of the Global Steering Group, the father of impact investment, founder of Social Finance, Big Society Capital. His book, Impact, Driving Real Change, has been translated into 13 languages and will be in Spanish in the coming months. Congratulations, Sir Ronald. And thank you very much for accepting the invitation to be with us today. Our session is called The World We Want to Live in, el mundo en el que queremos vivir. We are faced by a very complex situation driven by the long-lasting war of Ukraine, by the over-the-roof prices of oil and gas, with the consequences of COVID that is still hitting worse the developing countries. And that adds on only to the social challenges we've been talking about in the event yesterday and today, with the climate change at its climax, seeing fires in Spain that we had never seen before since we have statistical information, more than 200,000 hectares burning. In the face of this very complex situation, I would like to have the views and vision of Sir Ronald Cohen about this new impact economy, and to ask him about what are his thoughts, his vision, and his recommendation for us in Spain to grow the impact market and strengthen it. Sir Ronald, thank you. Where are we? Let's start by, where are we in the path towards making impact the center of our economic model?
Thank you, Maria, and thank you for these kind words of introduction. It's a great pleasure for me to be with you in Cantabria, talking about impact investment, and thank you for your close partnership over very many years now in driving impact investment in Spain and across the world. So we live, as you say, in a world which is fraught with challenges today. I think the big message that comes from the field of impact is that until we deal with our economic system as the creator of our challenges, we will not be able to make real improvements in the area of climate or in the area of social inequalities. What do I mean by that? I've been speaking for 4 decades about climate. The governments don't create pollution, companies create pollution. And we are in a situation today where our economic system is changing before our eyes. It's changing because of 3 separate forces which are converging to change it in order to cope with the challenges we face. The first force is one which is familiar to all of you in universities, which is the changing values that characterizes our era. The area of the vanguard of the impact revolution no longer want to buy the products of companies that create social or environmental harm, nor do they want to work for these companies. And investors have become aware that this change in values has grave implications for the returns on their investments, Maria. And so we see today 40 European billions, 40 American trillions, 40 million millions, social, and governance issues. So that's the first major force. The second major force, converging with the first one, is the force of technology. The leaps in technology that we are seeing through artificial intelligence and machine learning and augmented reality are equivalent to the power of the microchip which launched the tech revolution. And these new technologies enable us to deliver impacts globally in ways we could never contemplate before. And so you see companies like Tesla arising, which raised $146 million of venture capital 20 years ago, and are worth $20 billion today. And so we have technology and a change of values coming together with a third force, which is the force of transparency on the impacts created by companies and investors. Until the last 5 years or so, Maria, we didn't have a way of measuring the impacts of companies and translating them into monetary terms, into euros. Today, big data and technology enable us to do that. And so those three forces are bringing a change in our economic system, which involves putting impact alongside profit as the criterion for the value of companies and of the performance of investments. And that is a massive change away from a system where everyone was concerned with making money and unconcerned about the damage that was done on the way. The future is for companies like Tesla, despite all the foibles of Elon Musk, companies that optimize risk, return, and impact. And as we see regulators now, as we see the SEC in the US, the ISSB in the rest of the world, the EU, focusing on this impact transparency, which in my view will become mandatory in many countries in the next 3 years, 3 to 5 years, we can really see progress in bringing impact to the center of our economies.
Thank you, Sir Ronald. The point about that impact can be measured makes comparison between companies, and you've touched upon this. Yesterday, we had Banco Santander saying that impact investment is difficult now to run it at scale because there is no track record of what is the risk and return of these impactful products. Do you see that initiatives like the impact-weighted accounts, where you can compare companies of same sectors, not only on their financial value, but on the social value they create to push forwards impact investment and impact companies?
Yes, indeed, Maria. You can see that impact is affecting the value of companies in the data which Harvard Business School has published as the Impact-Weighted Accounts Initiative. And everyone in this conversation can go to HBS, IWA, and read any one of 20 reports and look at data sets covering thousands of companies' impacts measured in monetary terms. What the work at Harvard has shown is that there is a regular correlation between companies that pollute more and lower valuation than their competitors who pollute less. And this is what is going to drive the whole impact movement forward. That it's actually a better way to deliver financial performance for businesses and investors than just optimizing risk and return. The new name of the game in spotting companies like Tesla which offer massive return opportunity, is to define the role of impact in certain sectors and to use impact to achieve superior performance. Now we see this happening in clean energy, we see it happening in fintech, we see it happening in agriculture, we see it happening in education and in health. We're beginning to see new business models disrupting existing ones that create negative impact. Now, it's difficult for a new market which has not yet established a track record to grow exponentially. And I saw that with venture capital. My first fund in Europe for APACs in 1981 was 10 million pounds, 12 million euros or so. The last APACs fund is something like 14 billion euros. The impact field is going to go through the same exponential growth with one big difference. The big difference is that when we bring transparency to the impacts that companies create, public companies create, it is no longer a narrow asset class. So venture capital and private equity is probably $10 trillion, 10 billion European billion dollars today. But it started from nothing, and that's impressive, but it isn't like changing the value of all quoted companies, which is 200 US trillions. So we're dealing with something which is even more far-reaching than venture capital, which funded the tech revolution. We're dealing with something which is going to affect the ways in which we value companies.
Thank you, Sir Ronald. Touching just on what you just said, the disruption of technology, the disruption that impact has created, what about the disruption of financial innovation? Technology has brought about impact, has brought about impact-weighted accounts, and now what we need is to see, as we have talked about here, new ways of investing this private capital into forms of financial innovative vehicles that can be opportunity not only for entrepreneurs and startups in forms of venture philanthropy for social projects, but also as a way to finance these new companies that want to start their journey towards impact. Can you share with us what innovative products you're seeing in the market, such as social bonds or sustainability-linked bonds?
Absolutely, Maria. So venture capital was invented. 10-year funds with no return along the way guaranteed, like a bond, no dividends that could flow in the first several years, was a major innovation when I started out at the age of 26 to create what became Apex Department. And this new thinking took hold, as we know. Today, the leading investors in the world have 25% of their total assets in areas like venture capital and private equity. With impact, we are finding a similar innovation, responding to the needs of impact delivery. So it started off with impact private equity and impact venture capital, where you measure the impacts more easily than public companies. We've seen it in ESG going to equities of public companies. But ESG, because it doesn't measure, now has the obligation to defend itself against greenwashing, against claims which are unsubstantiated about the great impact that a company might be delivering. And we see a push now for these companies to reveal all of their impacts, and that's why regulators are focusing on doing this, because they want every investor to get the information at the same time. The big surprise for me is the one that you referred to. If you had said to me that the social impact bond, which was invented in 2010, where the return on a security depends on achieving a social purpose, would lead to $1 trillion in 2021, $1 trillion of sustainability-linked loans and bonds, I would have said that you must be dreaming. And yet that is what has happened. So we find companies borrowing from the banks or from the bond market, and the rate of interest will go up if they don't achieve certain targets, or go down if they do achieve them. And they can be environmental targets for an electric utility like Enel, or they can be reaching vulnerable populations for a drug company like Novartis or Tether. So we're seeing financial innovation come, but they are all based on impact measurement. Pay for success requires you to be able to measure success. And in the area of ESG, measuring the impact of a company in a comparable, verified way is fundamental to bringing impact into financial analysis and valuation of companies. So the big effort now, as the G7 Impact Task Force very clearly declared, the big effort now has to go to bringing impact transparency to companies and investment portfolios. And there we need the help of governments, because companies aren't going to do this voluntarily. There are about 100 in the world out of 10,000 public companies which are making an effort to measure their impacts. But most companies are very concerned about revealing their real impacts because their impact performance isn't in good shape. And so we're beginning now to see governments move. The pressures you referred to as a result of the Ukraine war, more constrained budgets because more money is going to defense, a push to self-sufficiency, which cannot be dependent on fossil fuels for most European countries, has to go in the area of clean fuels, of renewable energy. The need for efficiency to reduce the consumption of natural resources, including energy, are all pushing us in the direction of greater innovation through public sector support, but private sector investment.
Thank you, Ronnie. Unfortunately, we would have to close the session in 3 minutes, but I didn't want to finish the session without going back to what Agustín Vitórica said yesterday about the real challenge in Spain is to really grow the market in Spain to attract the big capital at the scale and the big institutional investors. Size matters, said once Jamie Dimon at JP Morgan, and it's true. We look at our peers in Europe, Sir Ronald, and we see that Germany, France, Holland, even, of course, the UK, pioneer in all this work, but also small countries like Belgium have capital invested in pure impact at size of 1,000 million and above. The market in Spain, we saw yesterday from the report of the Spain app, has reached 435 million. What are your recommendations, or what do you see, where are the main barriers to grow capital at scale to drive impact?
The first thing, Maria, is we need clear signals from government that this is something to be supported, that impact entrepreneurs and big businesses will begin to measure their impact, and investors like La Caixa and others who begin to define an impact allocation, that those are the things we want to encourage. And governments can do this by talking about it and raising awareness, by providing tax incentives for investment in certain types of impact funds, by creating impact capital wholesalers using unclaimed assets in banks, assets that belong to depositors who have disappeared. In the UK, as you know, the government released £400 million to create big society capital. There's nearly another £1 billion now being released from insurance companies and investment funds. And governments have to keep talking about impact measurement. And in fact, governments have to begin to measure their own impacts, the impacts created by their budgets. When you think of the huge sums of money that governments and philanthropists are investing in trying to improve the lives of citizens without ever measuring the impacts created, you realize that governments have to lead in measuring. We're all interested in our money directly and through government achieving the maximum good it can. And to do that, we have to measure. So it's time for the Spanish government now, with $1 trillion of sustainability-linked bonds, with major impact-leading organizations like La Caixa, to take this area as a way of achieving its social and environmental priorities without having to allocate its own budgets to doing it, paying only when the success has been achieved.
Thank you, Sir Ronald, for sharing with us not only your time, your precious time, but all the food for thought you have left us to strengthen our impact movement in Spain. And we share your vision that impact is a power of good, and that driving capital towards social transformation is the key, and we will keep working on this with the help of Ana, the University of Menéndez Pelayo, the beautiful city of Santander, and we hope to see you on the stage next year with your book Impact in Spanish. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maria. Goodbye.
Gracias. Tenéis no el libro, porque el libro lo puedes escribir ya por librerías o por Amazon o por Play, pero la versión española todavía no ha llegado, o sea que hay que esperar a la hora de traducir, pero sí podéis tener en adelante ese libro que es la entrada, que es el manifiesto de Ronald Cohen y del impacto.
Es un pequeño resumen de lo que será el libro, sobre todo explica que muchos de vosotros me habéis preguntado, ¿no? Esta nueva economía de impacto, ¿cuáles son los principios? ¿Qué es el impacto? ¿Cómo se mide? ¿Cuáles son las iniciativas? Yo creo que es un poco la pequeña Biblia de todo esto que estamos hablando, y además está muy bien organizado por capítulos respecto a la economía social, los emprendedores, la empresa, el gobierno y nosotros como ciudadanos, ahorradores y consumidores.